The world is witnessing a seismic shift in the global order, a transformation that is reshaping the dynamics of international relations. Emerging economies are no longer content with being rule-takers, passively following the directives set by established powers. They are asserting themselves as rule-makers, demanding a greater say in shaping the international system and influencing global policies. Leading this charge is BRICS, a powerful grouping of 5 major emerging economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, collectively representing a significant portion of the world's population and economic output. BRICS represents a diverse group of nations with a shared vision, a more just and equitable world order that reflects the interests and aspirations of the global South, aiming to bridge the gap between developed and developing countries. BRICS has emerged as a vocal advocate for reforming global governance, pushing for changes that would make international institutions more inclusive and representative. It argues that the current system, largely shaped by the West in the aftermath of World War II, is outdated and no longer reflects the realities of the 21st century, where new challenges and opportunities have arisen. The group calls for a more inclusive, representative, and democratic international order, one that genuinely considers the voices and needs of all nations, one where developing countries have a greater voice in decision-making processes that affect their future, ensuring that their perspectives and priorities are not overlooked. This push for reform is not driven by a desire to dismantle the existing order, but rather to improve and adapt it to current global realities. Instead, it stems from a belief that the current system is failing to address the pressing challenges facing the world today, challenges that require collective action and innovative solutions. From climate change and poverty to global health crises and economic inequality, BRICS argues that a more collaborative and equitable approach is needed to tackle these shared problems, emphasizing the importance of solidarity and mutual support. The group's vision is one of multipolarity, where power is more evenly distributed among nations and where dialogue and cooperation replace confrontation and zero-sum games, fostering a more stable and prosperous world for all. BRICS's call for reform is rooted in the belief that global governance should be more representative of the global population. The current system, they argue, is skewed in favor of developed countries, which wield disproportionate influence in international institutions. This imbalance of power, BRICS contends, undermines the legitimacy and effectiveness of global governance. The group advocates for a more inclusive approach to global governance, one that gives developing countries a greater voice in international decision-making processes. This includes increasing the representation of developing countries in key international organizations, such as the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank. BRICS believes that a more equitable distribution of power and influence within these institutions is essential for addressing global challenges effectively. Furthermore, BRICS emphasizes the importance of South-South cooperation in achieving its goals. The group sees itself as a platform for fostering dialogue and collaboration among developing countries. By working together, BRICS nations aim to leverage their collective economic and political weight to advance their shared interests on the global stage. This approach to global governance reform is grounded in the principles of multilateralism, dialogue, and mutual respect. BRICS rejects unilateralism and emphasizes the importance of finding common ground through negotiation and compromise. The group's vision is one of a more just, equitable, and sustainable world order, where all nations have a stake in shaping the future. At the heart of BRICS's call for reform lies a fundamental critique of the United Nations Security Council, or UNSC. This critique is rooted in the belief that the current structure does not adequately represent the geopolitical realities of the modern world. The UNSC, tasked with maintaining international peace and security, is often seen as the most powerful body within the UN system. Its decisions can have far-reaching implications for countries around the globe. However, BRICS argues that the current structure of the UNSC is outdated and undemocratic, reflecting the power dynamics of the post-World War II era, rather than the realities of the 21st century. They believe that the world has changed significantly since then, and the UNSC should evolve accordingly. The UNSC's 5 permanent members, the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Russia, and China, hold veto power, granting them the ability to block any resolution, regardless of the level of support it receives from other member states. This power dynamic often leads to a deadlock on critical issues. BRICS criticizes this arrangement as inherently unfair, arguing that it gives undue influence to a select group of countries while marginalizing the voices and interests of the vast majority of UN member states. They believe that this imbalance undermines the credibility of the UNSC. BRICS has consistently advocated for reforming the UNSC to make it more representative, accountable, and transparent. They propose a more inclusive approach that would allow for a broader range of perspectives and interests to be considered. The group calls for expanding the Security Council to include both permanent and non-permanent members from developing countries, particularly from Africa, Latin America, and Asia. This inclusion would ensure that the voices of these regions are heard and considered in global decision-making processes. This expansion, they argue, would enhance the legitimacy and effectiveness of the UNSC by making it more reflective of the diversity of the international community. A more diverse council would be better equipped to address the complex challenges of today's world. Moreover, BRICS has called for revisiting the veto power held by the permanent members. They suggest that the veto power should be reformed to prevent its misuse. The group argues that the veto power is often used to protect national interests at the expense of international peace and security. This misuse can lead to prolonged conflicts and hinder the UNSC's ability to act decisively. While acknowledging the historical context of the veto power, BRICS contends that its continued use in its current form undermines the principle of sovereign equality of states and hinders the UNSC's ability to address contemporary global challenges effectively. They believe that reforming the veto power is essential for a more just and effective international system. Central to BRICS's vision of a reformed global order is the principle of inclusivity, which seeks to ensure that all voices, especially those from developing nations, are heard and considered in global decision-making processes. The group firmly believes that developing countries, which represent the vast majority of the world's population, deserve a greater say in shaping the rules and norms that govern the international system. This belief stems from the understanding that these countries face unique challenges and have distinct perspectives that can enrich global discussions. BRICS argues that the perspectives, experiences, and aspirations of developing nations are often overlooked or marginalized within existing international institutions. This marginalization can lead to policies that do not fully address the needs and realities of these countries. BRICS has consistently championed the need for greater representation of developing countries in international decision-making bodies. This advocacy is not just about fairness, but also about creating more effective and inclusive global governance structures. This includes not only the UN Security Council but also other key institutions such as the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the World Trade Organization. These institutions have significant influence over global economic policies and practices, and the World Trade Organization. Ensuring that developing countries have a voice in these organizations is crucial for creating a more balanced and equitable global economic system. These organizations, BRICS argues, play a pivotal role in shaping the global economic and financial architecture, making it crucial for developing countries to have a voice in their governance. Without such representation, the policies and decisions made may not fully reflect the interests and needs of the majority of the world's population. BRICS has also called for reforming the selection processes for leadership positions within these international institutions. This reform is seen as essential for ensuring that these institutions are led by individuals who understand and can advocate for the interests of developing countries. Currently, the leadership of the IMF and the World Bank is determined through a system that favors developed countries. This often results in leadership that may not fully appreciate or prioritize the challenges faced by developing nations. BRICS proposes a more transparent and merit-based process that provides equal opportunities for candidates from developing countries to assume these leadership roles. Such a process would help ensure that the leadership of these institutions is more representative and inclusive. Furthermore, BRICS emphasizes the importance of capacity-building initiatives to empower developing countries to participate more effectively in global governance. These initiatives are crucial for leveling the playing field and enabling these countries to contribute meaningfully to nations. This includes providing technical assistance, financial support, and knowledge-sharing platforms. These resources help developing countries strengthen their institutional capacities and develop the necessary expertise to engage meaningfully in international negotiations and decision-making processes. By investing in these areas, BRICS aims to create a more inclusive and equitable global governance system where the voices of developing nations are not only heard, but also have a significant impact on shaping the future of our world. If you found this video insightful, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content on global governance and international relations. What are your thoughts on the role of developing nations in global governance? How do you think international institutions can be reformed to be more inclusive? Share your opinions in the comments below. Your support helps us bring more informative content to you. BRICS has consistently opposed the use of unilateral sanctions, arguing that they are counterproductive and often harm the most vulnerable populations in targeted countries. The group views unilateral sanctions as a tool of economic coercion that undermines the principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and non-interference in the internal affairs of states. BRICS maintains that sanctions should only be imposed by the UN Security Council and only as a last resort after all peaceful means of resolving disputes have been exhausted. Moreover, the group emphasizes that sanctions should be targeted, time-bound, and subject to regular review to minimize their humanitarian impact and ensure that they are aligned with their intended objectives. Instead of relying on unilateral sanctions, BRICS advocates for dialogue, diplomacy, and multilateralism as the primary means of addressing international disputes and promoting peace and security. The group believes that fostering mutual understanding, building trust, and seeking common ground through negotiation are essential for resolving conflicts peacefully and achieving lasting solutions. BRICS's opposition to unilateral sanctions stems from its commitment to a rules-based international order. The group believes that respecting international law and upholding the principles enshrined in the UN Charter is crucial for maintaining global stability and promoting cooperation among nations. By rejecting unilateralism and advocating for a multilateral approach to resolving international disputes, BRICS seeks to strengthen the international legal framework and promote a more just and equitable world order.